Well, it's Friday. It's 1 o'clock Central Time, and that means it's TuckerAllen Live right here on Facebook. And welcome back to everyone, and happy Friday. Happy Friday, Kevin, to you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about something we were just talking off camera about this topic, which we did address in April in a virtual town hall. And it is so interesting and appropriate that we thought it would be good, obviously, to talk about it because I have an example. And I was sharing that with Kevin again. And it's one of those estate planning topics that people don't think about, and it's called estate planning for blended families. And when you think about that, you could interpret it in a number of different ways, but let's maybe just break it down. Kevin, what does that really mean, a blended family for estate planning purposes?
Sure. So whenever I think of a blended family kind of for estate planning purposes here, I'm thinking of anything that is not like the stereotypical nuclear family of, two parents and some children, their children. So sometimes, right, this blended family, it could be, it could be a spouse gets remarried to someone significantly younger than them, or maybe a spouse gets remarried to someone who's closer to their age, and they also have children from a previous marriage. So now we have two different sets of children coming, to forming this family. So those would be kind of two of the things that I might think about with a blended family. But there's other, potentials there as well.
Yeah, and it's so interesting when you understand what that is, because I'm sure, like me, many people have an example or they know someone that happens to be remarried, is older, has kids. So maybe what are some of the special considerations? And before we talk about that, obviously, if you have questions along the way, submit them in the chat or in the comment section. I'm monitoring that right now on Facebook. And always keep in mind that the best course is to get a consultation on this. This isn't legal advice, because we're going to get technical about it. We just want to hear kind of your circumstances. So anyway, what are some of the special considerations that people should be thinking about when dealing with a blended family?
Sure. So some of the things just right off the bat to be thinking about here are, how do you want your assets distributed? Are you going to want them distributed all, are you wanting them to go to your new spouse, or, what percentage to the new spouse? We can't completely disinherit this new spouse, right? We have anti-spousal impoverishment statutes here in Missouri, so we can't do that. But how much do you want to give to them? How much do you want going to your biological children? Do you want anything going to your stepchildren? These are all just right off the bat. That's kind of the big thing here, is how are we going to get these assets distributed and in what percentages here? So I think that that's just really something important to think about. Kind of the next thing to think about would be is who are you going to have serving, if you have an estate plan that utilizes a trust, who do you want to have serving as a trustee? And really, do we only want to have a sole trustee, or would we like to have co-trustees in this situation? Or if it's a will-based plan, who do we want to have serving as the executor for the estate?
Yeah, I mean, it's many people in this situation, whether they're young or old, and it could be more than a second marriage, and they have this blended family. It's they probably breathe a little bit easier, thinking, okay, I've got my estate planning taken care of, and I never have to look and think about it again because I updated it maybe with my new wife. But what I didn't think about is the consequences of not being very specific in that will about, because you just think, oh, of course, my children are going to get a share of this, and so will my wife, or she will take care of them, right? You have this trust that she will do it. And I was giving you the example offline, and that is, I have a friend who father died, was remarried, and maybe they didn't have a great relationship with the stepmom, but what truly happened was exactly that. And stepmom gets all the assets and shares none of that with the natural born children of the deceased dad. Not only that, but the grandfather was telling the grandkids, "Oh, I got money set aside for you. It's not a lot, but some for college, and when I pass, that'll be my legacy to you." Well, it never made its way to those grandkids, and instead it made its way to the grandkids of the stepmom, who never knew him, have no relationship with him. And I mean, that's kind of the dilemma. As you said, do you really want the spouse to be the trustee or the executor, or to have the ability to make changes? I mean, that's what happens. I mean, you think this topic sounds really great until you hear these horror stories, and then nothing you can do, right?
Right. Kind of at that point, we've passed the point of no return, right? Once someone passes away, there's really nothing that we can do if their estate plan, says, and that's, I like you were saying, I can't tell you how common that is for people, especially if you're not going to an attorney or a law firm that specializes in estate planning. What oftentimes happens, right, is that attorney doesn't take the time really to figure out the ins and outs of this family situation. And so, right, it's just kind of a boilerplate will that they provide that's saying, my spouse gets all of my assets, and that's what each one of these will say. So then the spouse that passes away first, their spouse ends up with all of their assets, and it's kind of just, you know, it's up to the spouse to be gracious at the time of their death and to make sure that these kids are included in their will at that
Yeah.
point. So, and it just does not happen. It's not always malicious, right? Sometimes maybe sometimes it is due to a fractured family situation, but sometimes it's just like, hey, this person passed away 20 years ago and they've since grown apart,
Mhm.
and we just don't want that to happen. So
Yeah.
with a little bit of extra care here, we can really avoid any of those issues.
So, I'm thinking about it, and my comment is dealing with a remarried spouse and kind
Mhm.
of ignoring perhaps two things. One, the previous wife of, like in this example, the father, or current married people. Is there something they should be thinking about that if I were to predecease my wife, making a provision in the estate plan to make sure that our kids are taken care of and my grandkids are taken care of? Is there something they should be thinking about there?
Yes, absolutely. So, and I think kind of the basis for maybe this question is like, what type of estate plan do we want to have even? And generally my suggestion is going to be in a lot of cases for a blended family, a trust is the route that we want to go here. And there's kind of different types of trusts we can utilize depending on the situation. We may just say, hey, you both got remarried later in life here. They have lots of assets coming into this from that are their own assets. Why don't we just create joint trust or not? We create separate trusts. So each of you will have your own trust, right? You can account for your spouse because, again, we have to account for the spouse somewhat in Missouri here. So, like, let's account for the spouse as much as we need to in this trust. And then after that, let's account for your own children.
Yeah.
Or we can do what's called a SLAT, which is like a spousal lifetime access trust, which again might be a good opportunity, a good thing to do if maybe both people that got married later on in life, but one of them has significantly more assets than the other, and they want to make sure that if they pass away first, that their spouse still gets to maintain a quality of life that they were giving them. So what happens in that case is, right, the spouse has access to the income from the trust property during their life, but whenever they pass away, then it will go on to the grantor's children. Or there's joint pour over trust is another option that we can kind of go with. And what that is it's a better option where there might be an age difference for the
Yeah.
spouses, right? Because like that lifetime access trust might not be the best case if, let's say, somebody's 15 or 20 years younger than the other spouse, right? And it's like, oh, well, they have access to this. So now all of this money is going to be tied up in trust. The spouse that's still living is, they're not that much older than the children, maybe. And it's
Yeah.
like now these children, we don't want them to have to wait another 30, 20, 30, however long years to have access to this principal. So like maybe we can go with the joint pour over trust in this situation because there is this age disparity. So there's all sorts of tools that we can use, but a trust is really the best way to go about it. And it's not that it can't be done with a will plan, but it's just not near as clean.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's such an interesting, and actually, I think I was listening to you speak, it's almost like it's a delicate conversation to have with your new spouse because it's unlike where both have the children and you just naturally think that they're going to take care of them. And like all of my money would go to my wife. And then when she passes, it goes to our kids. And it's almost like a prenup or a postnup. It's that
Yes.
difficult of a conversation, but I think legitimately, it's like, look, hey, I'll take care of you as you suggest in the SLAT or whatever, and I'll make sure that your life is provided for. But I do want to make sure I want to provide this legacy money for my kids and their kids or whatever it is, or just small bequests or whatever it is. And
Right.
um, it is a delicate situation. So I imagine you hear these stories, but it happens more often than not.
Yeah, absolutely. If it, yeah, it just happens. The amount of times I read a statistic here sometime in the past week or two, it's like 80 or 90% of people who are, are in a blended family situation where it's just the wills, the biological children of the first spouse to die end up disinherited. So, and it is, like you said, it's a touchy conversation, but the thing is it's not one that you have to have on your own. That's why you should come in, speak to an attorney, allow someone like me to be the one to kind of bring this up and say, hey, I know this is a
Yeah.
touchy conversation, but this is my job. It's my
Right.
job to have this conversation. It's my job to say, hey, this is an uncomfortable conversation, but here's what the statistics say. I'm not trying to impute any sort of, I think that either one of you would be this way, but this is just what generally happens. And I don't want that to happen to either of you. So let me take the precautions that it won't happen. So, the thing is you don't really have to have the touchy conversation. Allow somebody else to have it, like me.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll take the blame.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. Let me be the fall guy here.
Right. But again, here it is. We talk about this every time. We talk at the virtual town hall and Fridays. We talk about the legacy protection program. And here is another that TuckerAllen offers. And here's another example where it may have not been a TuckerAllen plan, but someone comes in and says, hey, I want to go ahead and sign up for the legacy protection program that you offer, which gives you an annual review or maybe an initial review. And you're saying, hey, there's some gaping holes here. And that's when you're going to have a meeting with the new blended family. And you're the fall guy and say, look, I'm just going to alert you that if you were to predecease your new wife, your kids are getting nothing. And if that's the way you intended it, great. But it's my job to bring that up to your attention, and I can provide a way to avoid that if that's the case. And that legacy protection program is the perfect example of being able to take individuals who are watching or now, and they think, oh, all is well because I had, someone prepare this estate plan. But when in fact, maybe it's not, and you need to just have someone review it. So I imagine that's another great example of why this legacy protection program that TuckerAllen offers is important to get more information on.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something that, we review it, let us have those tough conversations and just, yeah, I understand why people don't want to be the ones that have those tough conversations. But again, that's why somebody's paying, I'm getting paid. Allow me to say, hey, this is kind of the way things are going to work out. Is that the intention here? Or do we need to have a conversation about maybe there's some other tools that we can implement here?
I mean, everything's about choices, options, and education. And then you're like, hey, here's door A, B, and C. And whatever you're comfortable with, I'm here to guide you. I'll tell you what's behind each door and what's going to be, the best path for you. But ultimately, you make the decision. But you can't get to those doors and understand it until you meet with someone to know your options. And that, again, it's a review of your estate plan. It doesn't. We've said it before. It's most of America will do it, and then it grows and collects dust, and you don't have it reviewed. It's time. It's always time to have it reviewed to make sure it's accurate, it's up to date. I mean, the tax laws may be changing here soon. That may be a major implication for many people to go from, I think, whatever it's 22 million down to whatever it may be. I mean, it could be $1 million. We don't know what this administration is going to do. So it's just an example of be proactive. Don't make assumptions that things are taken care of. This blended family, issue is so appropriate and so relevant. So, Kevin, thanks for joining and talking about this again. We didn't get a chance to talk about it on Facebook, but we talked about it in the virtual town hall. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it.
So, mention the virtual town hall. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to TuckerAllen.com, or you can go to Facebook and go to the TuckerAllen page. And you're going to see that coming up in June here in about 2 weeks. You can log in, join TuckerAllen attorneys, ask questions live and get answers. And it's complimentary, but you do have to register. So there's a topic that's new every month. We get everyone to join, and it's a very informative 30 minutes, 35 minutes, whatever it is. We get through them and you answer all the questions that we have, and we want to get you answers. Again, it's just about education and equipping you to make sure you can make the right informed decisions. Check out TuckerAllen.com if you want to make an appointment. You certainly can do that. You can give them a call, or better yet, You don't even have to talk to anyone. You can schedule it on the website and make an appointment. It's the best hour you're going to spend just to get informed. So thanks again for joining right here on TuckerAllen Live on Facebook. We'll see you at the virtual town hall in a couple of weeks, and I'll see you next Friday at 1 o'clock Central Time right here on Facebook. And until then, have a great weekend.